Hey, everybody. Welcome to It's Okay to Be Okay. I'm Crystal here with Jen and Melissa, and we have another special guest with us today, Dominic Scaffidi. He is the founder of HR Possibilities. He is grounded in the three principles understanding. I believe follows the teachings of Abraham Hicks as well. Yes. And I know that you have done some pretty amazing things in the corporate world with the coaching programs you've developed. And so yeah, I'm going to hand it over to you, Dominic, and just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, great. Well, thanks for the invite to this. I'm looking forward to our conversation. Yeah, so I'm an executive coach. I would say is kind of that's what I do. I've been self-employed for 15 years, and so a lot of my work is leaders and or within organizations with leaders like that. So one-to-one coaching. Really do three things: the one-to-one coaching that I do, and then I also can coach teams. So sometimes I'm working with teams, and then the third thing that I do is I can train leaders and in developing coaching skills. And so I say, so that they can become great coaches rather than good bosses, right? So like that. So that's all on the sort of organizational business side. But the other passion that I have, and you alluded to it, is just in my own personal development and personal growth. And so the three principles that are teaching that I came across, which I'm strongly grounded in. But even prior to that, I had been a student of Abraham Hicks and those teachings for many years. They helped me a lot in my business and in the way that I built my business and in so many other areas of life. And so those two things are strong in my grounding as a coach. And so also as a result of the passion I have for that, sharing that, those teachings, that understanding, um, a whole other side of my business, let's say, has built. And so I do different programs, like one program called Living Miraculously, which I do with a colleague, Grace Kelly. She and I run this together. This program is, it's like an 8-week program, and it explores various aspects of these teachings. And we've been doing that. We're now going on to 4 years. There've been 1,000 participants, just over 1,000 from 30 different countries have participated in the program. So anyway, that's kind of another big thing that I do is, yeah, more on the personal side.
That's amazing. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. So I've got like a whole because like obviously you I was so excited by this, but when I found you, I was like, "Oh my god!" Like he does Abraham Hicks as well. And so the first thing I want to talk about is so I was like you, I found Abraham Hicks first, and like it really resonated with me. And then I started doing other things, and I come across the three principles, and I dropped everything else. But I cannot drop Abraham Hicks. Yeah. Yeah. And it like, I seen evidence of it, so it's like I can't, but then I still sometimes have that kind of what's the word? Where I can't quite fuse them both together, there's still some contradiction, and I kinda get stuck a little bit. So I wanted you to talk on that.
Yeah. Well, I totally resonate with that because I'd been following Abraham Hicks first. And then when I came across the three principles, teachings of Sydney Banks are so simple. Um, and at first I thought, well, what is that? It's too simple. And I've never even heard of it. So can't be a big deal. Right. but, but as I kind of listened to it, it was almost like oh, wait a minute, but that's obvious. That's true. It was like, that's just true. I mean, it's true. Like, it's true, right? Like, it's a simple, right? Um, understanding, we're conscious. Everything that we experience happens in our mind. It is constructed of our own thinking. There's nothing else going on that from a direct experience so it was kind of like it was a very simple teaching. And I'm like, oh, well, so that's just true. And then the one thing that with Sydney Banks is the rigor with which the simplicity is kept. It's like it's very simple and you don't fuss it up, you don't make it fancy. It's like keep going back to that simplicity. And then Abraham, on the other hand, right, has so much that they talk about in all subjects, in all areas. And it is a very different teaching in that that teaching took me a while to realize was a teaching that evolves with questions. So it actually is a teaching that expands with the questions being asked. Abraham makes a statement that I find fascinating. They say, we are infinite intelligence. We know everything. We are infinite intelligence, yet we cannot answer a question that is not being asked. So if they just spewed out everything they knew, it would just kind of be meaningless.
Mm.
So there's something interesting in the teaching is the teaching follows the question. And so it's very different. It is answering at the level the question is asked, and it is answered always. And this took me a while to notice. It is answered always with consistency and according to universal law or principle that never varies. In that way, it's similar to Sydney Banks. It's a principle and it never varies. And I remember I would always try to catch them if they changed something or said it in a different way. It's like, wait a minute. Like I was trying to like hear whether they would contradict something. And I could never find contradiction. Even sometimes people would ask questions like, oh, this is a good one. They will contradict themselves here. Something like, well, you got to admit the war is bad, right? Like the war is bad. Like, so I'm like, oh, good. This one, they're going to trap them into a contradiction. And they just never did. They would refuse to go there. They would just always be consistent with principles. So I could, like you said, like then for some reason I came across the principles. I saw that it was simple, and I couldn't stop listening to Abraham
Mhm.
Hicks.
Mhm.
I would just go back and listen, and then I'm thinking, oh no, but you don't need any, like the principles, 3 principles are clear, so you don't need anything else. And then I'd go back and I'd be listening to Abraham, and then I started to notice and really see is like the harmony in it, like how there is a harmony in the teachings. There's no contradiction. Early on, I thought, wait a minute, but there is contradiction because Abraham, they actually give processes. They talk about techniques you could use, right? And after I came up across the principles, I kind of thought, oh, you don't need that. Oh my God, you don't even need that. It's like so obvious that you don't need anything to be you. Like you don't need you don't need a process in order to be who I am. So like, well, that's true. How can that not be true? And so then why is Abraham doing these processes? Why does Abraham offer processes? And at some point after, I would listen to Abraham, and then they would be talking about a focus wheel or some process that they have. And I remember I started to notice that they would say, as they went through, they'd go, wow, that was a lot of work. And you could have accomplished the same thing by petting your cat. So, so they would walk people through some process and then they'd go, well, but it's not even necessary, right? Really, what we're pointing to is this. And I'm like, wait a minute. Did they just say that that process was not necessary? They just like walked through a whole process. Did they just say the process was not necessary? And so then I started to see, and they basically have said, I've been in the hot seat many times. I've had opportunity to have conversation with them, and I've asked about this process thing, and I've confirmed because I literally put it into a question. No process is necessary, none that they offer. None that they offer is necessary. It's not part of their teaching in terms of as essential, not even meditation, which is the process that they would have, say, the most consistency on. And even on that, which is the one thing that they keep sort of carrying forward, is the 15-minute meditation is helpful and not necessary. And that comes out when they even make the statement, we would rather see you in a state of appreciation than in a state of meditation, right? So we would rather see you in the state of appreciation than in the state of meditation. So, yeah.
Yeah, so it's almost like what I'm hearing you say is that the 3 principles is there as the whole truth, and then she's bringing you where you are, bringing you up to it, like, to point towards what he's pointing to, but they get to kinda discover that on their journey of getting pointed there.
That's great. The Abraham teaching will meet you where you're at,
Mhm.
coming from that pure truth, and speak to you from there. A little bit in the 3 principles, you might notice that they'll stand in the teaching and keep talking there and not move, right? So you'll need to move over here. They will not move from over there. Which is different. Like if you hear sometimes Sid or whatever, the other thing is that Sid in the teachings is immersed around the spiritual formless energy, which is mind, mind. He's speaking or expressing about this truth. I'm going to say this in a humorous way, but let's say he's talking pure truth, right? Abraham a little bit will sort of say, this is totally my paraphrase, but it's kind of what I've picked up in the different style, that they'll say, yeah, you have eternity to explore your true nature and infinite truth. You have eternity for that. You'll never end in that exploration. And you have, this is my paraphrase, and you have but 100 years focused in physical form to explore this unique expression of the whole that you are. There's something precious about this. There is something to be experienced here. There's something in the focus of this that provides a view and a perspective and an insight and a seeing into who you are that is unavailable any other way. And we think that's worth talking about. And so that's worth talking about. And a little bit, you did not come here to explore who you really are. If that's what this is about, you should have stayed where you came from. If this is what this is about, you should have stayed where you came from. You are here. You can be or do or have anything. You are a creator. You came to create. And so that's a difference. In 3 principles, they'll rarely move off of the spiritual understanding. They rarely will speak to creation and creating your life and how about a business or a relationship or all that stuff. It's there isn't a lot of talk about it's Sid made the statement, a lot of them do, it's all thought. It's all thought. And why isn't anybody more interested in how do thoughts become things? Abraham speaks a lot to that, right? So it is all thought. It is all energy, and yet there is this physical manifested universe reflecting source, and there's something to see about that and something to understand about that. And Abraham is all over that.
I was just thinking that I really like what you said there. And, our last guest and Marina Gallen and a couple others have said it really matter-of-factly that the principles are a description. That's it, that's how we experience life. What we do once we know how it works is up to us. And I think that different techniques and things will get us to a point that we want to be, but yes, they're not necessary. But sometimes we need them to get to the point to realize that they're not necessary.
There's something that happens. We could say we don't know anything we are not experiencing. So, and Abraham says that clearly. They say words don't teach, only your own life experience can teach you. So there's no distinction between knowing and experiencing. In other words, you say, well, I know that my true nature, I know that it's abundance or it's peace. I say, oh, you know that? Yes. And what's your experience? What is your experience of abundance? What is your experience of peace? Oh, well, I'm not experiencing abundance, or I'm not experiencing, peace or whatever. It's like, will you then a concept, a good idea that you would love to be true. Wouldn't it be wonderful if our true nature was abundance? That's a wonderful concept. You just don't know it, right? Because to know it is the reality of your experience. To know it is embodied, and to know it is experienced that way. When it's an idea or a concept, it's not realized. So to realize is experienced, and so that's why sometimes with processes or we in Living Miraculously we use these we call assignments, experiments, assignments. So we assign things. So people go, do this, live like this, go try this, go, And so in the experience of that activity or, thing, like for instance, we'll say, I think one of the assignments is have more fun. So today, no matter where you are, bring fun into it. Like, so you're going shopping for groceries. How do you have that be more fun? So look for the fun, find the fun, be more fun, bring more fun, and then watch what happens. So instead of teaching something, people just try this. And then they kind of can say, so what did you notice? What did you see? And you're seeing something that actually happened, that's actually real. And so you're being taught by how interesting, right? I was able to do that. I took what I do every week or whatever, and I brought more fun to it. And this is what happened. It changed everything. And so you did that. And so now, what's the explanation and all of that? Well, whether it's ever explained to you or not, you know what you know because it happened and you know it, right? If someone wants to explain it, if you're interested in understanding the explanation for it, that's great. I'm geeky like that. I want to know the explanation, and you don't have to know it. You just know it's true. So,
Yeah, that's amazing. So yesterday I was watching another one of your videos and I had a aha moment. And it was, we cannot affect creation at the place of action because the action is actually a creation in itself. I was like, I had to pause it. I was like, holy shit.
right. Yeah. Yeah, that's tough to to get again, not as a theory, but as to actually get that, because
Uh-huh.
we're living in a physical world, and then you're in a physical world, so it's sort of like nothing moves without action. Nothing happens without action in this physical world, right? So you're kind of like, well, I'm pretty sure if you want anything to happen, it's gonna have to be action. So you're gonna have to act, right? But that movement has a source. And then that's what's interesting.
Mhm.
That movement has a source. The creation is there is only one creator, and it's not action. There is only one creator. There's not two creators. There's a creator, and then there's action. If you want to create because the creator's pissing you off because they're not creating what you want, well, then you just create yourself, right? Doesn't work like that. There's one creator. It is source, like that. And so all that is created is born, burst, arises, it exudes, expresses from that energy. And it's interesting what Sid said about that energy, God, mind, all that is. Actually, God, he says, God is energy in motion. That was God is energy in motion. So that source is not still. When people talk about, source, God, etc., or still mind, moving to a stillness, if you imagine an energy, which is like a frequency, a movement, and you speed it up, it would, and faster and faster and faster and faster, it would be so fast with such momentum that from our perspective would appear as still, right? So we know that effect from a fan. If you do it slowly, you can watch the fan move, but speed it up, speed it up, speed it up, speed it up, it'll even disappear, right? So, but it will achieve a stillness. And so there is no stillness. It's all vibration. It is all movement. Sid said God is energy in motion. So there is movement, there is motion. So there's a bit of a paradox in this, because now you go to action, you say, well, action is movement, right? If you're not acting, right? So you act, you're in movement. So physical action would appear, it would seem, to do things, right? But if you become interested in the source of the creation, you begin to access the creator that is you, where creation literally happens. Action is always inspired from the creation. So your action is inspired, is an expression of what has been created. But we live like, I want to create that, and I'm going to have to act. And we start over here from an action often. I got to learn about it. I got to find out what the actions are I'm going to need to do in order to create the thing that I want. I'll talk to people, read books about it. And so if I get the actions right, I will create what I want. And it's like you have an access to an energy that is the creator of all things. So when you say, I want to be in a relationship, I'm not in a relationship. So that's a creation. It sort of says, well, I am here and I want to be there. So there's like a movement, right? A creation. I want a change in my career. I am here and I want to be there. So there's a creation. And when you look at that, there's how does that happen? And so you're like, well, I don't know. And, maybe you need to learn things, do things. I don't know, whatever it is to get to the other thing. But let's say there is an answer. Right? In other words, there is a path that would go from here to there. And you're like, that's what I'm trying to figure out. I'm trying to figure out the path so that then I can know what to do, what to act. And you say, well, there's an energy within you that is of infinite intelligence. And it knows the path. And it knows the path. Well, what do you mean it knows the path? I mean, this is pretty hard. I've been wanting to be in a relationship for years, or I've been wanting to start a business or have my business be somewhere, and I haven't figured it out. And it's like, well, the same intelligence that spins planets and runs solar systems, it with that level of fine tuning, right, would have an understanding of where you are and where you want to be and all variables in that movement. And I think it's probably less complicated than a solar system, right? So for you to go from no business to business is probably less variables and less complications than a solar system. So that is known, and that energy is unfolding or wanting to unfold in the direction of that desire. It's all a question of, will you allow it? Will you align? Will you tap into it? Will you allow yourself to be moved by that knowing, by that intelligence?
Yeah. And I experienced that very thing yesterday, like, after I heard that. So I've been posting, and I just got a message from someone saying that they saw my post and, like, "I had to follow you." And then I started overthinking, "Oh, what can I send back? Oh, I wanna bring her into my kind of world." And then I started getting, like, in my head, I was like, "No, I'm gonna put the phone down. I'm gonna allow myself to feel this frustration that I'm feeling, let it pass." And I did. I sat on the sofa and I just kind of allowed myself to feel it, and then it passed, and then a new thought come in, "Send that." And I did. It was just like I could see it now. I was like, "Okay, I need to," 'cause I've been acting from that kind of that urgency, that kind of desperation. And after I heard you talk yesterday, I was like, "Holy shit," like, all my actions that I've been doing have been coming from that place,
Right.
but down here, and that's why nothing's working. And I was just like,
Wow.
yeah,
Yeah. The feeling is revealing,
mhm,
letting you know what it will create. So in other words, frustration, um, anxiety, worry, concern, and I better get it right. I got to get her into this or do this, and don't make a mistake because like that. So the very feeling of that, when I move with it, when I act, is creating outcomes that feel this way. That- It's like the most obvious thing in the world. It's like, well, what else could they create? I
Yeah.
mean, if you're starting with dirty water, what do you think is going to be what do you form with that once you put it there, right? So once you know that, you're kind of like, you get off the phone, you feel that frustration and all that. So I love what you said is like, you have to feel it, because if you don't feel it, like what you're flying blind. Like, do you know what you feel or don't you know what you feel? Right. So you have to know what you feel. So you're just like, oh yeah, this is frustration, impatience. This is insecurity. This is right. Well, yeah. So now you got it, right? You got it. You know how that feeling is. And it's like, and I'm not interested in it, right? When you feel it and it's like, and I'm not interested in it. Well, you should say this. Well, you should do this next. No, but I'm not interested in it. Like whatever it has to say, whatever impulse is out of that feeling, but I'm not interested in it because I'm not interested in whatever that feeling turns into, right? So you feel it, you know that. Well, now there's no interest, engagement, sort of, where maybe in the before you would have gone, well, you have to pay attention to this. Like, lots could go wrong here, and you have to get it right, and you need to. Da, da, da. So now you're actually engaged with it. Like, this is a good idea. I got to be concerned, and I got to make sure I make the right move and all that. And now you're literally playing with it. You're vibrating with it, right? Moving with it. And that's what's creating, right? So someone watching goes, yeah, yes, it seems like the action is creating, except we're missing. It's actually the energy creating. We can see physical movement, right? But it's the energy creating. So you could do from that feeling, reach out to people, invite them into your stuff, do whatever, and nobody comes. You get nothing. You get nothing but no's and rejections. And you go, well, but it's supposed to work because they said, if you spend all day doing this, right? In other words, if the action we're creating, well, if you were to spend all day making those calls or reaching out, then you should have clients and fill programs if that's what was creating. But instead, it doesn't do that, right? Because the energy cannot create it. Meanwhile, you shift into a different energy, right? Even then, if you're doing the same action, that's why it confuses people. So now you're reaching out, you're doing stuff, but everybody's wanting to come in. And people are like, see, I told you that was the clue, or that was the thing to do. And you go, yeah, it looks like it was the reaching out
Yeah.
and all of that, but it is not that that's creating, right? So,
Yeah. And it's the same thing, like, so the other day, I recorded a Zoom call of me recording, and it was basically an intro for our previous podcast. Now, I downloaded it, and it worked fine. Later on, I went back to it, no sound. I went back onto the cloud, downloaded it again, no sound. Went onto Zoom, no sound. I was getting so frustrated and so angry. The girls know I wanted to throw my laptop out. And then today, I was sitting on the sofa with my partner, and I was telling him about this insight that I got from watching your video, and I was like, "Oh my god, Dave, I've got to tell you this." And I said, out of curiosity, I'm gonna go back to the laptop and have a look at the video. Still no sound. And I'm talking to Dave, and I'm talking about, like, how you can feel sadness but at a high frequency, all that kind of stuff. That's another topic that I thought. And then I said to him, like, because before we were talking, we were in, like, a lack mindset about me. And I said, "Well, I'm gonna speak to you now. I can feel my frequency changing because I'm talking about our relationship, which is very high frequency." Fucking sound just goes on. I was playing it in the background, and it just turned on.
yeah. That's crazy. Yeah.
And me and Dave just looked at each other like, "What the fuck?"
And see, Abraham loves talking about because of course the whole thing you're fooling around with and the sound thing is all energy, right? Like because you're fooling around with this downloaded recording and all that. The whole thing's energy, right? In the computer and all that stuff. And so you it doesn't, it's hard to get your mind around, right? Like how can that be? But it's like there's a resistant energy that it's like it can't work in that energy. The physical world has to reflect back to you because it's as a mirror. So it has to give you an experience that's harmonious with this energy. So it reflects this energy in it. And in this energy in it, things don't work. There's disappointment. You must have made a mistake. You must have screwed it up. Like, in other words, this energy has to give you a valid reflection of the way this state is, right? And so it forms it in different ways, but all of them match and they're perfect, right? Sound won't work. Nothing you do will fix it. It's just going to, and it goes deeper and deeper into greater momentum of that same energy, right? And then you got distracted off doing whatever. Your state changed entirely. And somewhere in the middle of that, it's a different state, different state change, energy transmission's different. The reflection's different, like that, right? Change. Yeah. Funny.
This is crazy. Girls, do you want to, any questions, Sam? Because I'll just keep going.
I love this conversation. I love listening to you and hearing what all you have to say. Um,
So I have a quick question.
Yeah.
You alluded to something earlier, and I kind of just want to know the answer because if I'm being honest, have I heard of Abraham Hicks? Absolutely. Have I ever listened or followed any of the teachings? No, I have not. But you were talking about thought and the way the principles describes thought, or Sid's teachings describes thought as if we have no idea where it comes from, right? But that Abraham has an answer for that. And I was just kind of curious as to what that might be.
Well, both of them, there's such parallels with both, right? So
Yeah.
the way Sid speaks is there's mind, which is so three principles: mind, consciousness, and thought. Mind, consciousness, and thought. And so Sid speaks to an energy of all things. There's mind. It is the energy of all things, the intelligence of all things. So when you an infinite intelligence, and this word mind has been, and he's speaking, it is before form, right? One thing about Sid, which it can be in the teaching, is because he used three words in two different ways. So you could say mind, and he tried to distinguish divine mind, which is different than what many of us would say mind, which is my mind. Right? Like, so he's talking divine mind, he's talking infinite, he's talking something else. Consciousness. Oh yeah, I know what he means. I'm conscious, right? That's no, he's talking divine consciousness. It's an infinite, right? Even thought, right? Well, I know what thought is. It's thought, I think. It's thought. That's not what he's talking about. He's talking about thought, an energy, right? So he distinguished by using a capital MCT, mind, thought, consciousness, as capitalized, meaning in this energy of all things, from my mind, the thinking I have, small t, thought, and my consciousness, an individual like me. So that can get a bit confusing because, when he makes the statement, it's all thought, like, whatever. So here's what I loved about Abraham. Oh, by the way, another important thing with Sid. is he said, he describes three things and then he says, there's not three things, there's only one thing, right? So he says mind, thought, consciousness, and he says, yeah, but that's a metaphor. There are not three things, this one. And it is all one energy. It's one thing. Those are three words. They describe one thing. And the one thing they describe is energy. Wow. So Abraham says, it's all vibration. Oh, that was easier. I think I got that. Right. So once they say vibration, I'm like, oh, that makes sense. Right. So that whole thing, right? Abraham says it's all vibration, right? And then Abraham will say it is who you are is pure source energy consciousness. So that is this whole thing that Sid talks about, which is the one energy, one thing, all that. And Abraham says, who you are is pure source energy consciousness. So the same thing is being said. Now, how do you get to us from that? And if you take that in the way I described in three principles, as far as distinguishing them, because you're talking about one thing, saying it three ways. This is really interesting because you, as I describe or explain it like this, you have to watch me, because if at any moment I add anything to this, then that's not accurate, right? In other words, Sid described one thing. So we're going to have to stay with one thing, and you can't add things to the one thing, right? So you start with pure source energy, or let's use Sid's language, an infinite intelligence, an energy of all things. Okay, can't say much more about that, except there's something about it which is not dead, it is alive. And why I say that is an intelligence, for example, could be an intelligence like just intelligent, like information. I don't know, if you had intelligence like in many books or stored somewhere, you would say that's intelligence. That's the intelligence of all things. It's infinite intelligence, except it doesn't move. It's just that. So the difference with this is he says it's conscious. He didn't add anything. He simply describing it fully. An energy that's conscious. Okay? Nothing's been added. Right? So now there's a question. If an energy is conscious of what? To be conscious is to be aware. It's infinite and aware. Aware of what? And that'll ask that question. What's your answer to that question? Infinite energy, aware of what?
An infinite energy aware of itself.
And can you see how that must be true, and only that can be true? There's not another possibility. That's why these are principles. It's an energy that's infinite, and it is aware, it is conscious. It can only be, and when I ask the question, what is it conscious of? The way I say this humorously is when someone says, well, I don't know, what is it conscious of? And it's like, well, weren't you listening? I said it's the energy of all things. So what's it conscious of? Well, the only thing it could be conscious of is itself, because there is no other thing. There is nothing else. So far, all you're left with is infinite, eternal consciousness aware of itself. Now, that's only two principles. The creative principle comes next, which is thought. But I said to you, you got to watch me because I can't add in something. So I'm going to have to stick with this without adding anything else. Somehow I need to bring in the third principle, which is thought, right? So I'll say this carefully. I'm going to say it two ways. And then in the second way, the implication. The principle of thought is implied. It's not added. It is implied in what's already been said. So there's an energy of all things that is aware of itself. It is, we could say, all is aware of all. All is aware of all. Right? Now I'll say, all is aware of all that it is. All is aware of all that it is. All is aware of every aspect of itself. See, I'm not changing anything yet because those two statements must be both. They're implied and one statement that can't exist with the other. You can't say that the all knows all without the all knowing all aspects of itself, every bit of itself. I'm not adding anything. It is the same statement. But in that second statement, to know all aspects of itself, there is the implication of thought. And thought, Abraham says, is focused consciousness. So on the one we said, aware of itself, all aware of itself, all aware of every aspect of itself. It's saying the same thing. But when you say it's aware of every aspect of itself, you are every aspect, every focused aspect of itself. It is aware of. And in that focus is creation. The focus is creation. That's where you now have all this. So the things are simply a focus of consciousness, which is what thought is. So that is, Sid eventually said too, he said, who you are is a microscopic aspect of the energy of all things. So there you go. We are a speck of that same energy, indivisible from it, and a speck of it. So that, and by the way, again, if you go to the implication of why this must be, you can't be all knowing without knowing all. So if I'm like, oh well, I'm all that is, right? I'm all that is, and I know all, right? And because all is just here, and then all of a sudden I'm like looking and I go, what the hell is that? Like, I didn't know that, right? This little thing over here, right? It's like, oh, well, wait a minute. So you're not all knowing then. You must know all, every speck of yourself you are conscious of. So Sid then called us microscopic aspects of the whole. And so we are aspects of the whole. We are, you've heard these terms, and we are created in the image of the whole, in the image of God. You could play with that word and say that you are created in the imagination of God, created in the mind of God, the mind being all of it, and you are created within it. imagined within it, thought up within it as an aspect of itself. So, yeah, that's kind of like um, what I came to me in response to what you were saying, Crystal.
Beautiful. I was just curious in that. Yeah, that was a great response.
So with Abraham Hicks, I just had a question, it's just gone out of my mind. Because I think some people, when you come to the three principles, it is like an understanding. It's like, okay, that is the truth. There is no doing. There is nothing to do. Whereas Abraham Hicks kind of, because this is what happened to me. Like I had Abraham Hicks, and then I did that, and then I felt like the three principles took the magic out.
Well, I relate to what you're saying in that here's how it would have been for me. I was skipping more steps or more pieces following Abraham, which can be, in other words, my understanding was not really complete, which could be had more magical thinking in it. And that it's almost like taking some liberties, like a little bit like, well, I don't really understand that fully, but it happens. So I'm going to go with it, right? Like, oh, there's attraction, we attract and whatever, but I don't really understand it. But so it's a little bit more magical, right? And I appreciate it. So, but the trouble with it is where it's magical and it's not really understood, the understanding isn't deep enough, then really there's misunderstanding. That's what happens when the understanding's not deep. It's like there's misunderstanding, which is why like we can deepen our understanding, right? So, well, with misunderstanding, then you run into these kind of off the path little things that start to happen. Like, oh, I need to vision, right? I got a vision. I got to get in the feeling of the thing. I got to, right? I'm going to do scripting. I'm going to write myself the story of my life, how I want it to be, right? And there's something in it like, well, I don't really know how it works, but I'm going to do this. And magically, what happens is then things start to show up or whatever, which is kind of cool. And by the way, a lot of success you could have. I misunderstood Abraham for years, and it was enormously beneficial in my business and every other area of my life. Lots of thriving and all that. But the cool thing is when I came across Sid, it cleared up many misunderstandings, deepened the understand. Like I basically was like, oh my God, this Abraham thing is actually a very deeply spiritual teaching. I just thought it's something about law of attraction. And if you want, it's like, I just thought it was like some, kind of cool way of thinking about that. Right. And it's like, oh, wait a minute. No, it's this deeply spiritual teaching, but kind of spoken about or applied in our life, in our real life, in business and in all these things. Oftentimes with the principles, you sort of get like a little bit like, well, no, we don't need to talk about that, or that's just your thinking. We don't have to talk about that. It's just you just got to understand this, right? And that actually a little bit happened to me because I was kind of like, hey, this is really powerful, and Sid's teaching is very powerful. So I really kind of want to explore that, how that works in when you're creating something, and how does that work? Oh, you're now you're adding concepts, now you're adding thinking, now you're adding like that's not the teaching, right? And I'm like, well, I'm not trying to I'm not actually trying to add anything or distort it. I just kind of want to take it further. Like I just want to understand it as like thoughts become things and creation and stuff. And by the way, there's this other teaching, Abraham, that I've been following, and I can hear a lot of harmony. No, 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 no. You can't mix this. You can't mix this with anything. And I'm like, what? I'm not trying to mix this with anything. I'm just trying to tell you, like, I think that there's a harmony to this, and I would love to talk about how there's the same thing in different ways. And sometimes the principles can be so rigorously like, no, this is different. This is different. And you're going to confuse yourself. Do not mix it. Right. Sid actually never said that. That is such a misunderstanding of what he said. He did say you can't mix this stuff, but what he said you can't mix this stuff is you cannot think that my experience, I experience my own thinking, right? You cannot say that I experience my own thinking and then say, except for cancer. That's an exception. Except in the case of, I don't know, some horrific thing, like when they bomb babies in hospitals. That's entirely different. And Sid said, you can't mix this. That's what he meant by mixing. It's like, it's all thought, except for some things. Some things are not. And he said, no, that's messed up. You can't do that because you can't do because now you don't have a principle. Right.
Well, and I think, like, for me, what I've found is the deeper my understanding of the basic principles gets, the more I'm able to see it, like in my clients when they talk about their experience and their problems. I'm able to see the principles at work. And I don't have to go into them with mind, consciousness, and thought, and your problems aren't real. But I can go to their problem, where they're at, and how they're seeing it. And I can help them look at it from a different direction.
Yeah. Yeah. In your grounding, in other words, and I've experienced what you're saying is like, so they can talk about anything and you're not freaked out about it.
Right.
You and what's interesting too is so they talk about this happened and you're not freaked out about it, and you also have compassion for the emotion that they have, but you're
Yes.
not freaked out.
And understanding that their experience is very much real to them.
Real and valid and all that.
Yeah. Yes. And I work with seriously mentally ill. I work with people who are suffering from visual and auditory hallucinations and
Yeah.
psychotic breaks on a daily. And you can't tell these people, oh, it's just thought.
Right. Yeah.
But you can meet them where they're at in their experience and set up some buckets so they can look at it from a little bit higher place.
Yeah. 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 You can't tell them it's just thought. And you can know that it is.
Yes.
Right. And know that that would be so unhelpful to tell them that. Right. So unhelpful. And it would not end well. Right. So, but the metaphor that I really like about this is if you walked into your child is screaming in terror at night and you walk into the room And the reason they're screaming in terror is there's a monster that's in the room. And so they pointed out what you see, and it's huge and it's big, and you can see the shape of it and the whole bit. And when you look, it really is scary. And of course, you look and then you look this way, because what you know is that that thing must come from, and you look over, and of course, there is the moonlight and a teddy bear sitting on the windowsill, which is one ugly shadow up there. And the poor kid's in bed screaming, right? So you don't walk in there and say, silly, there's nothing to be afraid of. So that's an example where I understand, right? I understand what it is when I walk in the room. No matter how loud the scream is, my understanding is clear, right? And I have absolute compassion that this terror is real. Like, from that perspective of that thing that big, like, where did it come from? Like, this is completely appropriate. There's nothing funny going on, right? It's a totally appropriate response the child has. So in that case, I'm holding both. I'm totally unaffected because it's a shadow, right? It's a blockage of light. But I totally validate and understand the state that the child is in. And now the question is, how do you support? And, that's an art in itself. But how do we support? And we'll all find our way in that. But this is why is like, so as coaches or whatever it is like, well, it's about our grounding, right? And your grounding, your understanding where you're at. So you could meet any client and they can say this thing that's going on in their experience, and you understand it. And you understand it, and you're not horrified by it. And you completely get that they are and have every reason to be from that way of seeing it. So it's a weird thing that we kind of are able to hold both, but in a way, that's the only way to be helpful. Because if you take it the other way and I walk into the room, the kid's screaming, I walk into the room, I see this thing, and I'm screaming now with them because that is scary, right? So now that is equal understanding. Like, this is big trouble. And what are we going to do about it, right? And now imagine trying to help each other. This is a matter of being brave. This is a matter of, reminding yourself that you are strong and you can, or it's a matter of running. We got to run, and we got to run fast. Like, I mean, this is what your options would be. But there's nothing else to see, right? Like, it's like now you got to deal with the reality of this thing, and you're equivalent in the same perspective. And how helpful you could be is out of the same understanding. But it's not a lot of help that's going to happen there. Right. And
Right.
yeah.
But when you can hold both and show up unaffected, that in itself builds trust with the client. And then you can slowly start to turn them back the other way to see where it's coming from.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so interesting because even without you doing anything, already you're helping.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine with the child. I mean, that's absolute. Imagine with the child the difference of you walking in, right, screaming in terror, like what that would do. compared to the fact that you walked in, looked over there, turned around, like, but okay, so the child's sitting there kind of going, "What's going on? What's with that guy?" Like, he seems calm, like we're okay. Right now, the child doesn't understand, but there's something about that way of being which is settling, even though they don't yet understand what's going on, right? There's something settling. They're picking up like a solid energy, confidence, certainty, sureness, which is already starting to help. It's already starting to settle things, right? You haven't said a word. You're just being what you know. You're not doing anything yet, right? So it's amazing how powerful in helping or coaching or these types of professions, that self understanding and where we deepen, where we go for ourselves is always being of benefit in our work.
I can literally see that happening in my mind right now. It's amazing. There's one more thing that I wanted to touch upon, and it's something you said about the paradox of you are so much more than you think you are, and at the same time, you will never be anything other than what you think you are. I love that.
Yeah, yeah. So um, this has to do with your knowing and experience, right? Um, you will know yourself and experience yourself as you think. And you are far more than you think. And those things will forever be true. Forever be true. So you say, "Oh, but I've done a lot of work. I follow different teachings. I've done meditations. I really have lots of I don't think of who I am the way I used to think of who I am." Oh, wonderful. So how do you think of yourself now? Well, I think this. It's much, further. I go, yeah, that's really this beautiful. That's so evolved. It's amazing. Do you know you are far more than you think? So then you go and you're like, oh, okay. Well, so, the next year, 5 years, and my understanding deepens and goes further. Oh, I can see now I was so limited. It's so obvious how limited I used to be. So my thinking is so past that. Oh, wow, it really has gone past that. That's just beautiful where you've gotten to. Wow, wonderful. You know you are far more than you think. It would never end. So no matter who you know yourself to be, who you experience yourself to be, you are far more than that. Because knowing and experiencing yourself is a limitation. It is a definition. It is a defining and a limit of you. Well, in the old days, I used to see myself as this physical being, blah, blah, blah. Today, no way. I'm consciousness. I'm this, I'm, whatever it is. So that's wonderful, right? You are far more than that. And so there is no ending to self-knowing. That's I think, Jen, when you said no, well, when you said about the know itself, that's why that statement where is know thyself is the we could say that is the only will of the universe, the only desire of the universe, the only impulse of existence is to know itself. So it's kind of like Sid said we have free will, and then he also said, but there is only one will, and that is the will of God, right? So I remember that. I'm going, wait a minute. He says we have free will, but then he said there's only one will, and that is the will of God. And this is where everything you want, and Abraham says this in these words, the way Abraham says it, everything you want, every single thing that you want, be it a relationship, a pile of money, a car, and anything you want, is because you believe you will feel better in the having of it. You believe you will be happy in the having of it. Well, what is it to feel better? To feel better is to be happy, to feel better is to be more of who you are. When you are not being who you are, it does not feel good. To be more of who you are feels better than to be less of who you are. So it's to be more of who you are will feel better and better and better and better. But to be more of who I am is to also to know more of who I am. That's to know thyself, to know more of who you really are. And so the only impulse actually moving you is the desire to know thyself. But it's distorted into I want more money. Why do you want more money? Oh, well, if I had more money, I'd be free. If I had more money, it would be more adventure. It would be more aliveness. It's like, but wait a minute. But your true nature is freedom. You are alive. There's no more aliveness you could have. So you're already there. It's like, oh, no, this isn't it. If I had money, then you would see. Then you would see me being free, right? But right now I don't have money, so I'm not as free. But if I had the money, then I'd be free. So in other words, I have one big self-limitation with an interpretation, a thinking that says, how I become more of me is if I fix this thing outside of me that keeps me at this limit. And what that thing is that limits me is the balance in my bank account. If that were removed, then I'd open up, I'd be more of me, right? You think this is me? Well, if you fix the bank balance, then you would see me. And you're like, how can this be? This is crazy. How can your bank balance actually affect who you are? It's like, well, no, that's all in the thinking, right? It's like, so it's a self-limitation, which then creates what appears as an external desire of the thing that I want. I want to be in relationship. Why do you want to be in relationship? Well, I want to feel love. I want to feel whatever, whatever. And you're like, well, but you are love. Like that's the nature of it, etc. Well, maybe, but not like this.
I love what you
When I get in relationship, then I'll be that. Right?
I love what you just said there. Like, just click. Like, the limitation is what creates the desire. Like, I want this desire to be wealthy, but I also know that it's not the wealth that I want. It's the version of
Yeah.
me that creates
Right.
that.
Right. Yes.
And so you
Yeah.
just saying that limitation of me is what's creating the desire. I'm like, wow, okay, yeah.
Yeah. That's in Living Miraculously, we distinguish true desire. So we distinguish true desire from what you think you want. So we distinguish these. So what you think you want is different than what's the true desire. So the true desire is something deeper, and what you think you want is this thing.
Mm.
And there's so much to it because it's like in that the creator, that energy, that source is supporting true desire. You will always have everything you need to express what you truly desire, to experience what you truly desire, you will always be supported in that. Because we could say that's not even your desire. It is the desire of the whole to experience itself in more and more and more ways. In other words, to know itself fully, to know itself in infinite ways. So the desire you feel as an aspect of the whole is actually a deeper desire of the whole to experience itself in more ways. So you are fully supported in every moment, fully supported. You always have all that you need to be who you really are in every moment. But I say, no, I don't have everything I need to be who I really am in this, but I don't have enough money to be. Well, I can't travel because we have time limit. I'm working and time limitations. I can't be who I am. And it says, no, but you have everything you need to be who you are in these conditions, because that God, that infinite, that soul that is you would express itself fully in these conditions. No, you have to remove some of these conditions to do it. Well, then that would be conditional, wouldn't it? But your soul is unconditional. Your soul comes alive. Your soul loves without condition. Well, you can't expect me to love under these conditions with all the hatred and all the stuff that goes. You were telling me I've got to love in this situation? It's like, oh, sorry, we'll make the conditions better for you. We'll fix them first so then you can love. But your soul is like, no, under these conditions you can. And it's the impulse coming. That's the desire you feel. And you translate into wanting to change conditions or fix things or change things. But meanwhile, the possibility, the potential of that is here, now, right now. You have everything you need to be who you really are. And it's out of expressing that then you are matched to different creations, a different business, a different circumstance in your life. Relationship changes and transforms because what is in reality, physical reality, is the mirror reflecting what you embody and what you're vibrating at. So, but we get all into the mirror and want to move the mirror around so we can be different or vibrate differently. And it's like, mirrors don't work that way. You can't change that mirror and change your face. It doesn't work like that. You change your face, the mirror just follows you. So you change your being state, and what's in the mirror in physical reality must match it, right? So, yeah, we're hypnotized in a way with what appears outside. Mm.
Wow, it's been like an hour and 20 minutes.
Yeah.
This is our longest one yet. Wow. Crystal or Jen, is there anything else you want to say?
Thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for this conversation.
Well, thank you. Thanks for the invitation. And it was fun exploring with you. So, yeah, wonderful.
It's been a real pleasure listening to you and just taking it all in. Taking it all in, and I feel like I've just been on such a journey that it might take a little bit of time to catch up to that journey. It was absolutely beautiful. I really appreciate your time, and your energy is just gorgeous.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Wonderful. Well, have a great rest of the day and weekend. I appreciate this opportunity. It was great
Yeah.
getting to meet you all.
And Dominic, if anyone wants to find you,
If you use my name, so DominicScaffidi.com, on that website. There's links to my YouTube channel, a lot of resources on my YouTube channel, a link to my Facebook group called Ask and It Is Given, a very active group. If you're into this conversation and exploring this, great posts, great conversation that goes on in there. And my website itself has all kinds of free resources and different things that you can just get that will share more about this. Yeah. So,
Thank you.
yeah.
Everybody,
And there is an upcoming Living Miraculously. That program I recommend if anybody wants to sort of stay in this exploration. That's a great program. The next one, the spring one, I'm going to post soon, will be available. Grace Kelly and I are leading that. Yeah.
okay. Thank you. And everybody, if you will like, share, comment, subscribe, do all the things, let us know what you think and what you heard.
Awesome. Have a great weekend. Thanks.
You
Thanks,
too.
Yeah.
Dominic.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
1, 2,